Hi, it's 3 o'clock and I was scheduled to go live at this time, so here I go. My name's Annabel Kaye and I run Coffee Clutch, and we're all about micro businesses getting your ducks in a row. And my subject today is how you can get great contracts to help you build trust and profitability. If you're anything like me, when people start talking to you about legal things, you start to think, it's going to be dull. How long am I going to stay awake? And it's so tempting, isn't it? When you're building your business, working on your funnel, figuring out your proposition, sorting out the really important thing in business, which is how do I get customers for my coaching business? To think that as soon as you've got some customers, you're sorted. Everything's going to be just tickety-boo the way you wanted it to be. There are a number of things coaches do when you start to get your new customers on board. Some of you go what I think of as naked into the marketplace. You spent all that time on marketing, but you have no terms and conditions of business. You have nothing to set expectations between you and your client in slightly more sober terms and the beautiful marketing and promises you make. Some of you are second-hand Annies, and you love it. You run about the internet and you take a bit of this from someone else's web page and a bit of that from someone else's web page, and you create a kind of patchwork quilt of terms and conditions, some of which you've taken from businesses that have completely different models to you in completely different countries, and even ignore the last 2 or 3 years worth of legal changes. I hear you. We all like to economize. And some of you have gone straight to the source and you've paid a large amount of money. And it can be a very large amount of money if you talk to successful coaches about what their terms and conditions have cost, and you've got a document written by lawyers. Trouble is, they're mostly written for lawyers. So if you sit down your average customer and say, what do you think these mean? The chances are they'll tell you, never read them. Got through about 2 paragraphs, don't speak a lot of Latin, not really big on Victorian English legal terms, and so they stick them in a psychological drawer, and so do you. All of this has consequences for your business. It has trust consequences, and it has profit consequences. Let me tell you what they are. When you're working with a client, and we've all been there, they have their expectations about what you're going to do and about what they're going to do. If those expectations are mismatched, you're going to run into a certain amount of friction in the relationship. Classic signs are not turning up for a coaching session, but thinking somehow that they don't have to pay because they weren't there, even though you were there. Not completing the course material or the work you've given them between sessions, but thinking that maybe your program isn't working, even though they haven't done any work whatsoever. We've all had a few of those, haven't we? And if you haven't, I don't want to depress you, but you're going to have a few, because as soon as you start attracting people to what you're doing, you're also going to attract people who have an imaginary version of what you're doing for all sorts of reasons. Hi, Kim. I'm glad you popped on over. So how do your contracts phase into that? Well, of course, if they're in Latin and legal, they don't at all. In fact, having set your brand and your avatar and your tone for communicating with your customers, that like a smack. Because here's you, friendly, friendly, friendly. I love you. I can help you. I can help you change your life. And then you start to do the business side and you go, have that. And they read it and they think, A, I don't understand it. B, it's got nothing to do with the person I thought I was booking. So it's not at all friendly or encouraging. How would it be if your contract was easy to understand? What difference would it make if it set out clearly from the very beginning what you need your client to do once they're a client and what you're going to do? You might be surprised, but a number of coaching programs don't make that at all clear. And what would happen if it made it perfectly clear what would happen if they didn't show up? How about creating expectations that you both share? Not only does this improve your profitability, by the way, because you don't turn up for things that the client doesn't turn up for, and you don't turn up so often for people going, I want a refund, your program doesn't work, even though I never started it and I've sat on it for a year. But it creates transparency. So if your contract is something people can understand and they read it, they will go, oh, I didn't realize I had to pay if I didn't turn up. And they might come back to you and go, well, what happens if I get hit by a bus? Now, a contract is a promise from you about what you're going to do, and it's a promise from them about what they're going to do. If they're saying to you, well, what happens if I get sick, if I go under a bus? You can always say to people, that's what I've promised. But obviously, if there's a particular circumstance that justifies me doing something over and above what I've promised, I'll always be happy to do so. It's an old saying in business, isn't it, to underpromise and overdeliver. But in the coaching world, we are terribly tempted to be all things to all men and all women. And we feel terribly guilty about drawing our own business lines and our own business boundaries. So by creating this transparency, by making it clear what your promise is, you can create something predictable for your customers. My acid test for any contract is, if I look at a clause, like I'll charge you if you don't turn up, does the customer know that before they don't turn up? Because if the answer is yes, and I may choose not to, they'll be grateful because they'll know I'm entitled to and I haven't. But if the answer is they weren't expecting to pay anyway, they're going to be very upset if I charge them. There's going to be a row. And if I don't charge them, I'm going to be upset because I will have been spinning my wheels waiting for a customer who didn't value my time. Having something that allows your customers to predict what will happen if reduces the friction in your business. And of course, in these modern times, making it perfectly clear where you stand on things like confidentiality is a really big deal. We've all heard about data privacy laws, and if you're in the EU, you've had a lot of information about GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations. But there are over 80 countries and territories in the world now that have data privacy laws. And most of them come down to some very cool things about not doing sneaky stuff or careless stuff with your customers' information. And doubly so if they're trusting you and telling you what's really in their heart. They need to know, where is that information going and where is it not? So you need to get on top of confidentiality and data privacy, not just from a compliance point of view, though that would be nice, but also from a trust point of view. And that goes to the very foundation of what you do. And I do see new coaches chatting to other coaches in pubs and bars and conference centres we all get around, naming a customer. Fred Bloggs came to me the other day and he said he'd always had trouble with his mother, parent, sister, whatever. No. Our lips are sealed on customer data. From the very moment people start having a conversation with us, it's between them and us. Unless, of course, you've got a team. And I'm going to come on to that in a minute. But it is really important that you build trust through complying with the highest standards of confidentiality and data handling that the world has to offer. At the moment, that happens to be the European standards, but we wait to see whether another country is going to come up with something tighter. But I urge you to adopt the best possible technical, practical standards you can, rather than thinking of it as, if somebody makes me, I'll do something. A grudging attitude to confidentiality is going to come through in how you handle things. And of course, there's all sorts of details like your copyright and your intellectual property. You're sitting there thinking you're going to help someone, and the chances are with your programs you are. But not everyone you're going to help has the same idea about what's helpful as you do. At least 3 times a year, I'm talking to coaches who say, I took that person on as the customer, they took all my material, stuck their logo on it, and now they're selling my coaching programs. Now, they are in breach of copyright, and that's very true. And in most jurisdictions in the world, you can sue on that. But when I go to the customer and I go, what are you doing this for? They go, I don't know that I shouldn't. Because not everybody who's starting up a business for the first time understands that because you've used material with them to help them, they don't own the rights to use that material again. Wouldn't it be much simpler to put clearly in your contracts, this material is just to help you, you mustn't use it for any other purpose. If you want to come back and buy a license to use it or be franchised to my method, you need to speak to me. Honestly, naivety is as much a problem in the startup micro business world as just being devious and evil. Not everyone who does a bad thing understands it's bad. If they've always been an employee and they've never created IP of their own, they often genuinely don't know. We live in a world where everyone wants freebies downloaded offline, blah, blah, blah. They don't distinguish between that and material you may have spent decades of your life developing. Make sure also you have some very clear terms about payment. I love coaches. You are the most amazing people to work with, but sometimes you're so focused on helping other people, you kind of forget to help yourself. So you start off clients with monthly payments, and at some point they stop paying. Maybe they're not doing the work, so they don't feel motivated to you. You've made no arrangements about what happens when things go wrong. You get embarrassed. You don't really like to raise it because you're their helpful supporting person, not their credit control dragon. They don't really want to raise it with you because they kind of know they're the equivalent of the person not buying their round in the bar. It gets very difficult. If you've got something very clear about if you get more than so many days overdue, we'll suspend your membership, but you'll still owe us the money. Whatever the deal is that you want to make, you can simply say something to them like, I see we're just getting out of line with our contract now. We need to talk about this. We need to talk about how to get you back in. It's always so much easier, by the way, if you've got clear terms of trade, to get someone else to credit control for you, because there aren't going to be arguments about what payments were due or why, and you're not going to spend hours of your life disputing a $40 overspend with someone when you really should be out there selling your master program. Now let's talk about getting other people involved in your business. There are a number of ways that you can expand your coaching business, and I'm not a marketing bot, right? When I know about marketing, you might want a postage stamp, never listen to me about stuff like that. Go listen to the other people in this group who know what they're doing. But this I can tell you, there are only so many hours in the day you can work. If you don't want to sleep, eat, have any time off, whatever, there's still a maximum. For most of us, there is the maximum we can charge for our programs unless we reposition them, we rebundle them, we do something. And there are geniuses in this group about doing that. But it's really hard to create that really upscale program if you're making money from your low or mid-scale program, because that takes all the hours in the day you've got. And so you end up doing your master material at midnight. And don't I know it, by the way, from the girl who's worked 2 straight weekends in a row because we've got a launch of a new contract range that's nothing to do with coaching, but it's sucked up a lot of oxygen in our business because we're going push while that's going on top of a lot of other things. So you need a team. But most coaches are really frightened about hiring a team. You might have a bit of an erratic income, you might be worried, but there are a variety of people you need on your team. The first one is probably your cheapest person, which is the virtual assistant. Somebody can do the stuff you don't want to do, whether it's credit control or with me, it's proofreading things. I speak so much more quickly than I type. I type rubbish. Without proofreading, I'm completely incoherent online. So I need someone always chasing me down. That person is much cheaper than what I earn doing what I do, so it's good value for me. But before you rush out, we need to contract with that person for the same standards of confidentiality, same standards of transparency, and we need to set expectations with that person just as clearly as we do with our customers, because otherwise we're the dissatisfied customer going, oh, I didn't really expect that. That's not what I was after. If you can offload your admin time into earning time, that's a great way to make more money. The next thing you might want to look at is a technical expert. I'm surrounded by technical experts, by the way. I am the princess of incompetent. Without a team, I cannot send out a newsletter. I'm not joking. I could just about log into our system. That's okay with me because I have someone who does that. So you can have experts, marketing experts, finance experts, production experts, people doing the stuff that your business really needs, but you're not necessarily good at. They can be more expensive than your basic admin people, but you need to contract with them properly. You need to make sure that they are not owning the rights to the material you're going to package up and sell. Because just like you, if they're in their own freelance business, in most jurisdictions in the world, they own the copyright to what they produce. And you're going to say to me, but I pay for it, surely I own it. Well, it's arguable that you might own the right to use it, but a license to use stuff is not a license to package it up, repackage it, change it, or even sell it if one day you're going to sell that really successful coaching business. So make sure the people you're paying to produce stuff for you are under the right contract so that you own all that stuff so that you can do what you need to do with it. About 2 or 3 times a year again, I work with a lot of people who are outsourcing to freelancers and are freelancers. A broken-hearted coach will come to me and go, I had this wonderful tech VA. They set up my Infusionsoft. I think they call it Leap now. They set up my online marketing, my web, blah, blah, blah. We were perfectly happy for 5 years. Then we had a round. They've just switched me off. I can't get into my marketing system. I've got no access to my NAS. I don't even know who's subscribed to my latest program. You think this never happens, but it does. And it happens because, A, you set it up wrong. You should always be the master user on everything, even if you don't know more than how to log in. And that's all I know on some of the programs I have. But you must contract that what they're producing for you must be handed to you, transparent to you, and you get to switch them off. Now, you may think I live in a really paranoid world. But it's because I have contact with so many coaches, I hear what's going on. Because your coach that you really admire, who's really cutting it in the room, is not going to tell you that they've had a bit around with someone and they can't get into their coaching program. That's secret. But they tell me because we're under confidentiality clauses, which is why I will never name them or say anything about them. But this is for real. And the third category of people you're going to be contracting with as your business grows, if your coaching business model goes that way, are associates. You may wish to refer business to other coaches who specialize in areas that you do not. I honestly believe it's a great mistake to be the coach who does everything. There's an old saying, you know, the jack of every trade is the master of none. But I wouldn't trust you if you said, had a bereavement, need a business plan, want to be more self-confident, do something about your diet, I'm your girl. How could you be expert in all those things? So you have to contemplate that at some point or another, you will need other people around you. And for some business models, that will be associates you subcontract to who go out to deliver either things you're not expert in or things you are expert in because you are now so overloaded doing your thing, you can't be the person who turns up for everything. Brilliant. But if you don't make sure you continue to own your rights, if you don't make sure you secure your data, and if you don't make sure that you have the right to stop them going direct to your customers and cutting you out as the middle woman or the middle man, you're going to find your business grows and contracts, grows and contracts. And a lot of businesses do this, not because you haven't got your pipeline sorted, but because you haven't got your capacity sorted. So you need to think about getting it straight with your customers so that you are getting a solid base of trust and build and scalability in what you do, but also having a plan to pass that down the line through appropriate, friendly, transparent, contracts that do a lot more than make you compliant. I get really cross, forgive me, with people who go, it's all about compliance. Yes, it is true. There are things you need to do for your business in various countries called compliance. But if the only time you're going to look at the legal side of your business is when they make me comply, you're going to miss a lot of opportunities to fly. Because setting healthy boundaries between you and your customer, transparent ones that everybody knows, and doing the same with your team is the very foundation of having something that means you can move fast and grow. Not everybody, hi David, it's good to see you here, wants to scale a massive global brand. That's great. I am the princess of small. I've been running my lovely niche marketing, legal practice and advisory practice for 40 years this year. This is the point, by the way, David, when you go, you can't possibly have done so. You look far too young. But the truth is, in 40 years, I've seen a lot of stuff. And if you take on board what I have said to you about contracting in a clear and transparent manner, you are going to reduce this judder in your business. Whether you're trying to have a tiny business and just send the kids to school or maybe make money for a holiday, or whether your coaching aspirations are to change the world. You can't change the world if the world keeps on changing you. And if you're not getting paid for what you do, that beautiful, beautiful pipeline is disappearing down the drain. Think about, what do I need my customers to do for this coaching program to work? Write it down. What do I need me to do to make this coaching program work? Write it down. What do I need my customers not to do to make this work? That's a nice little list of negatives, isn't it? But get it out of your system. And what do I need not to do to make this work? Because sometimes in our enthusiasm, we can become our own worst enemies. What information do you need to keep really safely and never share with anyone? And how are you going to make sure that's the case? What information are you going to have to share with people to ensure continuity of cover? You pay your taxes, your insurers know what you're doing, whatever it is. Not all information in your coaching practice can stop with you. Make a list. Who's getting it? Do they know who they can share it with and not? And why? Because if you haven't told them, and this is all about assumption, well, you know how badly assumption can go wrong. And particularly for coaches, almost more than any other profession, your problem is you love to help. You really, really love to help, but your customers don't see themselves as needing to help themselves until you've moved on with your coaching, or to help you. So you can get stuck with them really thinking that coaching is something you do to them rather than with them. So make sure your psychological contract and your legal contract match, and that means matching the language. Now, I don't mean if your skills in the language you work in are very poor that you should have a contract no one can understand because it's all spelt incorrectly, but keep it clear, keep it simple, and keep it real. Because when that's real and you're real, it all comes into alignment with your brand, and you can stop spinning your wheels or trying to have arguments in Latin with really expensive lawyers. Now, we have people who argue the hind leg off a donkey, and they don't like it that I'm out there teaching people how not to have that row. But I think of a great contract as power at the point of contact. It's like a judo thing. Most of the time it's just there, you're just sitting around, nothing seems to be happening. But because you're always in the same system, on the same page, if something goes wrong, you already have something there where you can choose to throw them, or you can choose not to, because you are not obliged to do the difficult things in your contract, but it's lovely to always have a choice. And I guess as much as power at the point of contact, I believe we all came into entrepreneurship to give ourselves a bit of freedom, a bit of wiggle room. And the best contracts that we ever write are like beautiful corsets. Not that I'm sure I can see David wearing one, because if there is no support, we're a bit all floppy all over the place. And every time something happens, we have to make a decision. And that's it, spinning our wheels, taking our energy. And if the corset's too tight, we can't breathe. Our business doesn't move. But if we get it just right, we're kind of sleek. We've got no lumps and bumps under that beautiful frock, but we've got wiggle room and breathing room and space to grow. So if you want to talk to me in the chat after this webinar, anytime you like, about contracts in your business from practical experience, I'd be really happy to help. So thank you for joining me, David. Thank you for joining me, Kim. We have 2 minutes if you want to ask any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to disappear and let the next speaker go up on time. Whatever works for you works for me. My name's Annabel Kaye. I'm from Coffee Clutch. I'm also English, which is why I have a lovely Call Blimey mug sitting with me now. And we do great English contracts. And we can even spell American if you really make us. Speak to you soon. Bye.